Zibby Owens, and you're listening to the award-winning podcast, Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Please sign up for my newsletter at zibbyowens.com for updates on podcast guests and lots of live events. Today's episode is sponsored by Poets and Writers, which is the absolutely essential go-to resource for creative writers. Founded in 1970, Poets and Writers is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. Visit pw.org to get inspired, connect with others, and explore a treasure trove of trustworthy information about writing contests, literary agents, and more. Elizabeth Gerlach is the author of the children's book series Ben's Adventures, about a young triplet brother who uses a wheelchair but loves to dream up fun adventures with his family and friends. The series was inspired by her son, Ben, who passed away in 2016 at age 3. The 2 books in the series so far are Under the Big Top and Day at the Beach. Elizabeth is a special needs advocate and fundraiser for the Ben Smiles Memorial Foundation, which she founded. A former advertising and marketing exec with an MBA in marketing, Elizabeth currently lives in the suburbs of Chicago with Ben's triplet siblings, Colin and Ava. Her husband is recently back from being deployed in the Middle East and is now in the Army Reserve. So welcome, Elizabeth. Thanks so much for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books.
Thank you, Zibby, so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
My real name is Elizabeth, too, just so you know.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
So if you ever want to steal a nickname and go through the pain of...
Zibby is not one I've heard before. I've gotten Liz, I've gotten Lizzie, I've gotten Beth. People ask me always, do you go by Elizabeth? I'm like, yeah. We can thank my mom for that. It was never shortened.
You're lucky. It's sort of been a pain having to shorten it. But anyway, It's nice to talk to a fellow Elizabeth. So you have a very interesting, inspiring, sad, moving, happy, everything story. And I am thrilled to be talking to you about all of it. Your book series, Ben's Adventures. Why don't you tell listeners how you started the series? Why don't we just start with that and what the children's books are about?
Well, the children's books were inspired by my son, Benjamin. I had triplets very prematurely at just 25 weeks and 2 days back in 2012. So we were one of those families where you hear of, preemie babies and they're in the NICU for 4 to 5 months. And so that was, we were one of theirs. So I've been through that whole kind of NICU roller coaster. You don't really know. You literally live day to day to day to day. You don't really know what's going to happen. So my son, Ben, at that time, he actually had a lot of complications, a lot of infections, just a lot of stuff kind of happened to him. Whereas the other two, if I can say, they had kind of your typical kind of NICU stay, they had, a couple little things that happened, but nothing really, as severe or significant as Ben did. But so he had a lot of complications from the prematurity. And then ultimately at about 10 months old, when he wasn't meeting his milestones, he wasn't rolling over or bringing his hand to his mouth or, holding his head up or just, all of those things that kids at 10 months old should do. We had been to a ton of doctors and ultimately was diagnosed with spastic quadriplegia, cerebral palsy, ultimately developed epilepsy, needed a feeding tube, was nonverbal, may have had some vision impairment. There was just a lot of, he had a lot of medical needs and just kind of a host of things that, he was going to be a kid that required a lot of care, which is fine because he was mine. And I believe, things kind of happen for a reason. And I was his mom and you're going to do everything you can to take care of him. But over the course of 3 or 4 years, he started developing respiratory problems. And, where a runny nose or a cough or a sniffle for a typical kid, for him, it meant like a severe respiratory infection and a visit to the ER and a PICU stay. So we probably had 6 or 7, PICU stays over the course of about a year and a half or so. And then ultimately, and with each one, he kind of, would get sicker or sicker. He ultimately required oxygen at home. And so the last one, he developed this infection that he just couldn't survive. So he ended up, we lost him May 2nd, 2016. So I spent a year of just not even knowing how to step forward. I didn't want to get off the couch. I'm thankful I had the other two because as a mom, you're kind of forced to survive, and forced to move forward and forced to, just keep things going. And so, I'm thankful for them that we had, that I had them. So ultimately, the idea hit me one day to start a foundation. So we started, Ben Smiles Memorial Foundation, which I can talk about that a little bit if you wanted me to. But I also then thought, well, what am I supposed to be doing for him? Because as a special needs mom, you think, your purpose is to take care of your child. My child for his life was going to be dependent on us. He was going to have all these additional needs. And that was my identity, was to, kind of take care of him. And then one day you wake up and he's not there. And it's like, holy cow, like now what am I supposed to, what am I supposed to be doing? And so, we started the foundation, and then, I was driving in my car one day and I thought, it'd be really cool to do a children's book, because just again, to kind of create a legacy for us or for him, or give tribute to him and show a kid in a wheelchair, because you didn't really at the time see a ton of picture books that showed all types of people, all types of kids with different needs or different abilities. And I thought, well, that would be really cool to do, to represent in my way, a kid or a kid in a wheelchair that needed, had different needs. And so, but I didn't want the books to be about disability, just to be, about how he lives in a wheelchair. But I wanted it to be about a child that was a kid, even though he was in a wheelchair. So he could have friends, he could have dreams, he could enjoy his life, he could have fun. And so the premise of my books is that, it's Ben's adventure. So, Ben's in a wheelchair, but he dreams up all of these fun kind of instances. And so the, first one is, he dreams up a time at the beach. And, I grew up going to the beach. I mean, from the East Coast originally. So all of our family vacations were, we went to the beach. And so I actually, even though we're outside of Chicago, so even though we live in the Midwest, we always took the kids to the beach. So that's still, even though they're young, we've been to the beach. So that, that was the premise of the first one. And, again, then the first one I approached as just, a tribute to him, and just, how can I kind of memorialize him, or, represent disability and still kind of have it honor our family and pull from our own experiences and kind of, what made us happy. And so, that's where the beach concept came from. And then the second one, which just released in September of this year, is a tribute to the early childhood education teachers, because Ben, he died right before his fourth birthday. So he was in school, they were in preschool together for a year. And so he just had a phenomenal, 1 year of school, and he thrived, and he learned so much, and he showed me things that I didn't even know he would be able to do. And so I wanted to give tribute to them.
Oh, Elizabeth, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. This must be so hard to talk about. And I'm so sorry for your loss and your experience. And my heart is just aching for you.
No, thank you. But you know what? I always tell people, because you feel like, and I'm going to try to get it together here.
You do not have to get it together at all.
But when you talk about a child's death, people don't want to talk about that, so I feel like people kind of shy away from it, or they, don't talk to me, or they don't, ask questions about it, or they kind of like, dodge around, the topic. And I always just say I'm an open book, because I welcome any chance to talk to him. I'd love to tell people about him, so.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, I'm good. I'm
talk to me about him. Tell me a little more about Ben. I mean, I know I saw in all of your books and everything and got a sense from your website, but like, what made Ben so special?
Well, he was mine. I thought he was perfect, even though he had, all of the challenges and just the physical junk, and, day-to-day life was hard. We had a ton of appointments and a ton of therapies, and he was on a special diet for the epilepsy, but he smiled. I mean, he just had the best smile, and he just laughed, and he was ticklish. So we would kind of do things to make him, laugh and smile. And that's where the premise of like Ben Smiles, the name for our foundation came from, was Ben Smiles, just because he had the best smile. And like, that's what I want people to, know about him. And he was happy despite all the other stuff. So,
oh, I'm sure you made him as happy as you possibly could. You're obviously so devoted, and there's so much love that you still feel. Oh my gosh. Tell me a little more about the foundation you set up. That's a beautiful thing that you did.
Thank you. So he couldn't really move his arms, or he couldn't grasp. And just because, he just couldn't control his muscles were so tight, and it was difficult for him to relax. But I mean, when kids are young, they want to play with toys. They need to be able to, that's how they learn, is through play. They play with cause and effect toys, and they grasp things and manipulate things. And, in his case, and, a lot of kids' case, they just can't play with typical toys. So they make what they call adapted toys, or switch toys. Whereas if a child can hit a switch, or if they can, maybe they can move their elbow, and, so they can tap a switch with their elbow, or, like in my son Ben's case, he was fisted. So his natural position was this, so he couldn't really use his fingers. And so, but he could, move his arm an inch and like bump a switch or answer a question or whatever it is. And so they make adapted toys, but they're expensive, and insurance isn't going to cover toys. They cover a lot of stuff they don't cover. There are things that they just don't cover, and so fortunately enough, we were able to get some toys and just some extra kind of tools, resources for him to have in the house. But many families they aren't able to, and I just thought it was so stressful for me. As a mom, like around Christmas, and you wanted to buy gifts for your kids or at birthdays or whatever. And so, you're just like these times of the year where you just want to buy, have new things or have stuff for your kids. And it's like, for some people, it's just impossible. And so I was driving in my car one day, and I think I've realized I have all my best ideas when I'm driving, and I can't really, or I'm in the shower, or like I'm doing something where I can't act on it immediately. But I was driving in my car, and I just got kind of this sensation, like kind of this tingle, like this. It's even hard to describe. And then the name Ben Smiles popped into my head. And I just thought, well, this is, I don't know, beliefs of your listeners or whatever, but I just thought, this is kind of my message. What am I supposed to do with this, And so, I had the name Ben Smiles, but then it was a question of like, well, what is that supposed to be? And then ultimately, I started thinking about it, and the toy idea, kind of developed about a year later. So he died in May, and then the following April, we're able to, we kind of met up with some people here that could help us through the foundation, help us set things up. And so, it launched April of 2017.
Wow, that's amazing that you do that. Have you been able to connect with any families who have been able to use the toys that you basically...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we probably, I don't have an exact number, just simply because I haven't added them up. Like this week, I think I've gotten 6 new requests for different toys. And so, obviously, they kind of trickle in throughout the year, but Christmas is a big time. And so last Christmas, I think we shipped out 82 toys or something.
Oh, wow. That's so amazing. Do you do it right there? Do you do it from your house?
It's like me at my kitchen table.
No way. Oh, my gosh.
It's me taking in the order forms, and, you try to really cater the toy for the child, because some kids have epilepsy, and so they can't have any toys with, like bright lights or flashing lights or anything like that. And some kid, maybe a, child has vision impairment. So, movement is less important, but they need something with music. And so, we try to, really cater, or I try to really cater the toy, to the child's needs, and just pick something that's going to be most useful and joyful for them. And so, yeah, last year I was really overly stressed, and every time, and I'm like buying, getting the toys and preparing everything and boxing them up and taking them to the post office. And every time I would walk into the post office last Christmas with like 6 or 7 boxes, the, postal lady just like rolling her eyes. We became best friends after that. I feel like I was in there so frequently. But yeah, no, it's fun. But yeah, no, it's me. I'd sit here and I do it all.
And how do you
not to sound like,
Yeah, you don't sound anything. You sound amazing.
I haven't recruited. I should probably, a smart person might ask for help and try to delegate, but I'm not there yet.
Yeah, I find delegating very difficult.
Yeah, I'm one of those control things. I think that's why I went down the self-published route with the book, because I just thought I want to have control over the story, the illustration, the timeline, the marketing, the everything. So.
Did it ever occur to you to go to a traditional publisher, or you just knew from the start?
No, not really. Yeah. By the time I started thinking about doing a children's book, I started seeing, like in different Facebook groups or Facebook friends, people were, mentioning, oh, I just released my book or whatever. And so I thought, wow, I just had this idea. Now I'm starting to kind of see things around me, that are talking about self-publishing or children's books or whatever. And again, that's, I kind of thought, well, maybe this is kind of a message that I should try, go down this route. And so reached out to a Facebook friend of mine, and, started asking questions to her, and then just figured it out from there.
And then you launched a Kickstarter campaign to raise the money?
I did. Well, the first one I did not. The first one I funded, I did work with a hybrid publisher for the first one, and they helped me through the process. And I think I'm still learning as I go. But with the first one, that's where the kind of the control aspect comes in. They were great with the design and the creation and everything. But then like the publishing portion of it, I just started to ask questions and realized, I just wanted to be able to handle everything myself versus rely on somebody else. So for when I decided I wanted to do the second one, I did. And it's expensive, because as a self-publisher, you're funding everything out of your own account, out of your own, money. So I decided to do the Kickstarter just as a way to, kind of build it up, maybe gain some more followers, talk about it, have people pre-order. So, it does then give you, some cash flow, I guess, to be able to print the books. So, and it's expensive, but yeah, I just, that's why I did the Kickstarter, just to help with pre-orders and help to fund kind of the second one.
And meanwhile, while you've been going through all of this, your husband is in the military and was deployed in the Middle East for a while. And now I guess he's back.
He's back. Yeah, he's been in the Army. He's the Army Reserves, actually, and has been in for like 32 years or something like that. So this is even kind of he and I have been married this January will be 9 years. And so he had 2 deployments before he and I met. But then, he had always just, throughout our relationship, he had just been in the reserves. And, which basically meant, you go for a weekend or you have certain duties you have to, fulfill throughout the month and go on certain trips. But then he had this opportunity, his whole unit had this opportunity to go to Kuwait for, do a deployment to Kuwait. And, we kind of talked about it, and it seemed like a good way to kind of build his military resume. And so, he just went and deployed. So July of 2018. And got back May of 2019. So he was gone 10-ish months.
So I know this is like an overly simplistic question, but like, how do you do all of this? So your husband's gone, you're still mourning the loss of Ben. You have essentially twins now. And I mean, I have a set of twins and it is not easy. Like how, and you're managing this foundation from your kitchen, you're writing children's books. How do you do this without just like, I mean, I feel like I'd be sitting on the bathroom floor just crying of like the stress and I don't know. How do you get through it all? How do you do it? What inspires you and keeps you going?
I don't know that I have a good answer to that question other than just each day, and my kids are so, I mean, they're in second grade now. So they're 7 years old. And so they are kind of out of the home for a good portion of the day. But I always tell people it's like the fastest 6 hours of the entire day.
I totally.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I'm sure how old are your kids?
I have twins that are now 12 and a half. And I also have a 6-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Okay. So, I feel like, when they first went into kindergarten and they were going to be gone for the 6 day, for the school day, I thought, wow, I'm going to get so much done. My house is going to be so clean. I'm just going to be like the most organized person. I can, focus on the foundation more. And it was just not the case at all. It's the quickest 6 days, and then, or 6 hours, and which is, I mean, I completely love my children, obviously, but somehow I'm just not as productive as I ever thought I would be. So if I have something to do, I don't mind doing the work. And so you just handle it. And then, I mean, after school, my kids have so many activities, we're just kind of running back and forth to gymnastics and ballet and swimming and, there's all kinds of stuff going on. So.
And did they ever express like their emotions about the loss of Ben from their perspective, or were they too young?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's still so very much present here, and they were almost 4. I mean, he died, 6 weeks before their 4th birthday. And, as triplets, I mean, I know, with your twins, I'm sure you feel they have a kind of just an innate connection. There's just something there between them because they're twins. But, I don't know. I mean, I really struggled with how to explain it to them, when he wasn't coming home from the hospital, because he was always here and they accepted Ben for who he was, and he needed medical care and he needed to use a wheelchair, and he needed, like, he wasn't exactly, like them, so to speak. So I think, because he had been so sick, I basically explained it to them that, how he's been so sick, he can't breathe, his lungs, like his body just can't work anymore. So he's gone to live with Jesus. And so, he's gone to heaven to live with Jesus. And in their mind, and at 3 years old, they're like, okay, but when he comes home, can we go to Chuck E. Cheese? And it's like, well, and then I would kind of have to explain it again. And, well, he's not coming home. He's living with Jesus. And, well, no, okay, yeah, but when he comes home, can we do this? And, I'm getting this book. So when Ben comes home, I'm going to give him this book, or like whatever it is. And so, because for them at 3, it was just, he was their brother, and he was a part of our life, and he was always at home. And so, I mean, probably about 6 to 8 months or so after that, they stopped saying, when Ben comes home, because there had been that period of time where he wasn't here. And so they were, kind of getting more used to just being the two of them. So in terms, they were saying, like, I honestly don't know if they have any clear or, real memories of when their brother was here. I mean, but we look at photos all the time, we look at videos. Thank you to Facebook for showing me what happens on this day back in, so it's like, I don't know. So we talk about him all the time, and they're very proud of the books, and, so they know he's their brother, but I mean, I don't know, like, emotionally, if it really impacts them, because I feel like he's still here. We still talk about him. He's just present in a different way. So
does anything help you, like, aside from the charity, like, what helps you the most in day-to-day life? Like, how can I help you? Now now that I am, like, so upset I can't hug you through this Skype call, like, what can your friends do? What can we as a community do? Like, how can we help? How can I help?
Well, I don't know if there's anything that people can physically do, because as a mom who's lost a child, and, I'm sure there's people out there that can kind of support me, and Lisa will attest to this. I mean, you don't recover, you learn to live in your new situation. So for me, helping me has been being able to give to other people and honor him in that way, and, like, see smiles with other kids, that are, like, holding the book, or that are playing with the toy, or that are like him. That helps me. So, and some days are good, and some days are okay. Like, I can go for days and not have a breakdown like I'm doing right now, and, like, last night I went to a fair, like a holiday market at a school. And so, trying to, talk about the books and talk about the foundation. And so for 3 hours, I spoke to people about the books, and I told them about Ben, and it was, like, completely fine. And I was able to be happy and make jokes, and, but then it's like, you get in your car and you just kind of, like, you have to have a little bit of a release. So I don't know. But yeah, so I go through days where it's like, I'm good. Like, things seem normal, but then, something might happen, or, I don't know, have a memory or have a thought of, like, how am I never going to see my kid again? Or, like, how am I not going to be able to hug my son again? Like, I have that kind of question. But, I don't know. I mean, as a mom, you just figure out how to step forward. And so that's what I had to do, 2 years ago, was, this is our existence now, right? I mean, this is life now. So how do you still step forward, and how do you progress, and how do I survive for my other children, And so that was my way, doing the foundation and doing the books.
Oh, wow.
Being able to talk about them.
Well, I feel just so honored to get the chance to talk to you about him, to get to know Ben more, to get a little slice of your story. I think what you're doing, as I'm sure you know deep down, is just the most amazing thing ever. I mean, I'm just so impressed with you. And the books are great, by the way. I know that, like, we've not really discussed the actual books, but you're a really great writer, and the illustrations are fun, and, my kids love the books, and, it's really, really impressive. And I am so sorry for everything you've been through. And I just thank you for being so open and sharing. And I'm going to get off this Skype interview and go donate to your foundation. How do people donate? It's Smiles.
Yeah.
What's the website?
It's bensmiles.org. So BENSMILES.org.
Ben Smiles.
And the book, the Ben's Adventures books are available on Amazon. But then also they're on I have a website, bens-adventures.com as well.
Well, Elizabeth, thank you for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books and sharing your story and all the stories of Ben.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, my pleasure. You've been listening to Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books with Zibby Owens. Please make sure to sign up for my newsletter at zibbyowens.com to get more updates about episodes like these, and also lots of live events. Thanks so much. Today's episode has been sponsored by Poets and Writers. Visit pw.org to get inspired, connect with other writers, and explore a treasure trove of information about writing contests, literary agents, and more. You can follow me on Instagram at Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Thanks so much to Steve and Ryan at Texture Sound for the sound editing. And thank you to Morning Moon Productions for providing this fantastic intro and outro music. Thanks for listening. You can always email me at zibby@zibbyowens.com.